Trier, oldest city in Germany. Trier, the second Rome. A visit to Trier always turns out to be a journey through time. Even the Romans already enjoyed being here. They therefore affectionately called the city the second Rome. Not everything has changed since time immemorial. Just like modern man, a well-to-do Roman sometimes felt like a few weeks in an amusement park. A wealthy Roman chose Trier, then called Augusta Treverum. He wanted to see the new city gate, experience the horse races on the racecourse of the circus, take a dip in the spacious Barbara Thermen, and not to forget, great horror during the games in the amphitheater. And who knows, he might be able to meet the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, who was just building St. Peter's Dome on the foundations of his mother Helena's palace. The name Trier, as the city will later be called, is derived from the Celtic tribe that lived here, the Treveri. These Celts settled in the area around 400 BC. A legend says that the city must be much older. The facade of the Rotes house on the Markt has the following inscription in Latin: "Before Rome was founded, Trier existed for 1,300 years, but whether this is true."
On arrival, the modern Westerner will initially be most affected by the Grote Markt, Hauptmarkt, with its beautiful colorful facades decorated with statues of saints and ornaments. These do not date from Roman times, but are reminiscent of the late Middle Ages. Since 1595 there is also the Peter Fountain, named after Saint Peter, the city patron of Trier. Right next to it is the Market Cross, which was already established in 958 as a sign of the acquired right to keep the market there. Trier's Hauptmarkt is one of the most beautiful city squares in Germany. A row of beautiful half-timbered houses from the early 17th century leads to the Hauptmarkt in the center of Trier. There are beautiful buildings in different styles on the square. The Dom Street Peter in Trier is the oldest bishop's church in Germany. The interior of the cathedral is of a special richness. The church is full of beautiful sculptures. It is important within a hustle and bustle. It should not sound dishonorable that this is downright the most convivial church in Europe. The Shirt of Jesus. In the early 12th century, the first written reference to the Holy Tunic is found in the Gesta Treverorum. According to this text, Saint Helena, the mother of Emperor Constantine the Great, is said to have brought the tunica to Trier in the 4th century. On May 1, 1196, Archbishop John I of Trier inaugurated the new Eastern Choir of Trier Cathedral. The Holy Tunic was bricked into the main altar. At the direction of Pope Leo X, a 7-year cycle was then introduced, in consultation with Aachen, where a similar sanctuary journey took place. This happened in 1524, 1531, 1538 and 1545, after which the wars of religion of the 16th and 17th centuries ended the tradition. The Archdiocese of Trier thus trumped the rival Abbey of Prum, which had been in possession of the Sandals of Christ since 752. The current building, which represents the Salic style, dates from the 11th century. The present complex is actually a double church with the Liebfrauenkirche, which is located right next to it. Rather, the whole consisted of an impressive ensemble of two large, adjacent basilicas, of which the current cathedral and the adjacent present, Gothic, Liebfrauenkirche formed only half of the total.
When the National Socialists came to power in 1933, the Jewish community in Trier numbered about 800 members. She had been hit by pogroms repeatedly over the centuries, for example in 1349, when she was accused of the outbreak of the plague. Many were murdered, and in the decades that followed hardly anyone returned to Trier. But even these medieval atrocities had little in common with what happened in Trier from the late 1930s onwards. Between 1941 and 1943 about 600 people were deported to the east, most of them died. Porta Nigra. Much more impressive is the city gate, just a few minutes' walk from the market square. The Porta Nigra, which the wealthy Roman wanted so badly to see on his journey. In the time of the wealthy Roman the gate was still new and had the soft color of virgin sandstone. In the Middle Ages, the sandstone was already completely polluted and turned black. Hence the addition Nigra. The Porta Nigra is Trier's landmark. After a pilgrimage to Palestine in 1030, Simeon, a travel-loving monk, had himself festively bricked up in the east tower of the Porta Nigra, and then devoted himself completely to prayer. Miracles were attributed to him, and it is probably thanks to his hermitship that the Porta Nigra is still standing. The building dates back to the 2nd century and is the largest preserved fortress gate from Roman times. The name, Black Gate, was given to the imposing fortification centuries later when the originally yellow sandstone blocks weathered to their dark color. In the 11th century, the gate formed the core of a fortified church, which unfortunately was demolished in the time of Napoleon. Only the west tower was preserved in its entirety. Only the lower part of the east tower is left. Since 1986, the Porta Nigra has been added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. Roman Bridge in Trier. Oldest bridge north of the Alps. The Roman bridge over the Moselle is the oldest north of the Alps. Actually, only the pillars are from Roman times. Originally the Romans built in 17 AD. A wooden bridge over the Moselle. Around 200 Trier was walled and large stone pillars were built in the water. A wooden bridge was built on these stone pillars. The Moselle, honored by the vineyard-clad hills on its banks, cuts the city in half. With a bit of luck, you will enter Trier over the Römerbrücke, the oldest bridge in Germany, whose stone pillars in the Moselle water still date from the same old Roman times and where the wooden wheels of the carts undoubtedly rattled very loudly upon arrival. The current but old stone bridge still rests on the original one since 1986. The Roman bridge in Trier has been added to the UNESCO World Heritage List.
Construction started in the 4th century and they were the largest baths of the then Roman Empire. Visitors could use warm, lukewarm and cold water baths. There was also the option of a sauna or massage. Like other Roman buildings from that time, the bath complex was equipped with a lot of comfort and luxury such as heated floors, beautiful tiling and sculpture. Emperor Constantine donated the Kaiserthermen to the population, but construction was never fully completed because the emperor left Trier. He moved to Constantinople, today's Istanbul. In the Middle Ages, the bathhouse was the corner bastion of the city fortifications. Only a few foundations remain, but the imposing caldarium of the Kaiserthermen, although ruinous, is still shining in all its glory. Emperor Constantine had begun construction but never finished it because he left Trier to found Constantinople. It was not until much later that his successor, Emperor Valentinian, declared Trier the capital again. He found the building ideally suited as a barracks for his bodyguard. So real bathing fun as was once intended never happened here. Today there are the ruins of the hot water baths and underground channels and passages excavated in the mid-20th century. A total renovation is underway. This network of corridors is well preserved and well worth a visit. Since 1986, the Kaiserthermen along with other monuments in Trier have been added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. residence of the electors of the Archdiocese of Trier. Electoral Palace. Right next to the basilica is the Electoral Palace, residence of the electors of the Archdiocese of Trier, from the 17th century to 1794. In the period from 1198 to 1870, only 7 of all royal princes were entitled to elect the new king of Germany. The palace is a mixture of the Renaissance and Rococo styles. After the expropriation of the electors under Napoleon, the palace was used as a barracks by French and Prussian troops in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Excavations showed that the building site of the palace had been built on as far back as Roman times. Except for a few pieces of mosaic, none of it has remained. When Trier was occupied by Napoleon in 1794, the palace garden was opened to the public. The Electoral Palace in Trier was the residence of the electors of the Archdiocese of Trier from the 17th century to 1794. It was built by Elector Philipp von Walderdorf. The palace is a mixture of the Renaissance and Rococo styles and stands right next to the Roman Basilica of Constantine. After the expropriation of the electors under Napoleon, the palace was used as a barracks by French and Prussian troops in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Particularly worth seeing is the grand staircase of the south wing with beautiful carvings and frescoes on the ceiling. The beautiful Baroque garden complex adjacent to the south wing features copies of statues of Greek gods and the remains of the medieval city wall. Circus. There is nothing left of the circus in Trier, but the wealthy Romans and their wives undoubtedly enjoyed the chariot races there. Usually a quadriga, a 4-in-hand, was ridden, but races were also held with the biga, pair, triga, 3-in-hand, ciaga, 6-in-hand, octouga, 8-in-hand, and even the decamuga, 10-in-hand. The cars started from the carcers where the starting cages were next to each other. The drivers were often slaves or freedmen of low social status. However, the great popularity of chariot races allowed them to garner much fame. During a race, the cars had to go around the spina 7 times. At the turning posts at the corners of the spina, the intention was to take the turn as short as possible in order to hinder the opponents. Many wagons capsized here, so it regularly happened that the drivers were thrown from the wagons and dragged to their end by the deadly horsepower. So enjoy everywhere. But you will not find a stone of it anymore. Amphitheatre Trier. The amphitheatre in Trier is located just outside the city. When you walk in, it becomes clear how big and important Trier must have been from Roman times. The design of the amphitheatre in Trier is quite different from other amphitheatres and dates back to the 1st century. The special geographical location at the foot of the St. Peter Mountain allowed the Roman to use the natural slopes as stands. There were seats for 20,000 people. The oval terrain where gladiators once fought and captives were thrown to wild animals is about 75 meters long and 50 meters wide. In the walls there are openings that gave access to rooms where the gladiators and wild animals stayed. Below the arena are the cellars, which are accessible by means of a narrow staircase. These rooms were once used as a shelter for prisoners and gladiators. Unlike the Circus of Trier, there are still enough remains of the amphitheatre left to be able to immerse yourself with a good dose of imagination in the gruesome bloody fights that took place here. The predecessor of our amusement park was characterized by unprecedented cruelty. Wild animals such as lions, tigers, crocodiles and elephants were incited against each other, but the small bull terrier was also frequently used against, for example, the large Bengal tiger. always with the oh-so-exciting uncertain ending. The daytime program in the amphitheater was varied. In the morning there was the hunt for predatory animals. Public executions took place around noon. In its mildest form, Roman citizens who had committed a serious offense were executed with the sword. For the lower people, the organizers of the festival had a free and cruel hand in carrying out the punishment during the highly honored performance. In the afternoon the gladiators fought head to death. The spectacles had one blood-red thread, dying as a form of entertainment. Today, tourists curiously descend into the dark, wet areas under the arena floor. In the past, the gladiators and the chained prisoners waited here for their inevitable fate, before finally breathing their last breath.
St. Matthias Abbey Church. Early Gothic in Old Trier. The Matthias Abbey Church has kept the relics of the Apostle Matthias since the 12th century. The church building is centrally located in the middle of a large medieval monastery complex and was built between the 10th and 12th. Churches have stood on the same spot since the 4th century. The current design of the church is a three-aisled pillar basilica with a west wing on which a Baroque tower stands. The reason for the construction of the monastery was the tomb of the first bishop of Trier, Saint Eucharius, 4th century. The relics of the Apostle Matthias gave rise to the monastery's flowering, making the church the target of many pilgrimages. In the crypt under the choir, around 980, are the late Roman sarcophagi of Saints Eucharius and Valerius. The early Gothic monastic buildings, the Pearl of the Rhineland, adjoining